So today we are going to in fact start with or we will start to look at process variations. We will also talk about projects, and if time permits, we will also probably talk about start with power dissipation and power estimation methods. So until now, what we looked at is delay estimation methods. Am I right? Logical effort and all the delay models, everything, Elmore delay, everything was delay estimation. Hmm? So we have also looked at stick diagrams, but stick diagrams do not give a very clear view of area yet. It does give you some sense, but not really a very clear view because the concept of width is not there in the stick diagrams. So you will get the concept of area when you will work on your projects. You've already done assignments in which you have in which you have drawn layouts, so you have some sense of how area is, impacted when you change the size of devices. And power is something that we will start next. Okay, and after that we will go into different circuit design styles: static CMOS, pseudo CMOS, pseudo NMOS, dynamic logic, and so on. So we'll look into various design styles for combinational circuit design. After that, we will look at sequential circuit design, and then we will sign off, the scores. And like I'm just giving you an overall, a quick overview of what to expect in the second part of this course. So later part, we will sign off with some arithmetic circuits like adders, multipliers, and also memories. Okay, so a quick glimpse of memories also will be there towards the end of this course. Okay, so today we will start to look at parametric variations or process variations. We will have a quick glimpse of why they happen, and which we've already discussed. So we'll move quickly around that. Then we will go to the projects part, and then we'll start the power dissipation aspects. So we designed a inverter such that this black line, the black line now, which I'm overlaying with red now, we designed an how do I remove this? I can simply remove this. So we designed an inverter with this nominal curve of black line. But if the PMOS is designed is faster than what we had anticipated, or the NMOS is worse than what we had anticipated, then the curve would move to this side. On the other hand, if the NMOS is better than what we had anticipated and PMOS is worse than what we had anticipated, the curve would move to that side, to the left side. It is almost like you've changed the beta ratio of your design. Am I right? If you change the beta ratio, curve would move on left to right, stuff like that. You remember?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So if it so happens that PMOS is manufactured fast or NMOS is manufactured slow, then the curve would move to right, because it appears to the in the Kirchhoff's law equation, where how we determine the transfer characteristics of an inverter, we see that PMOS will now drive more current, and therefore the curve would move to the right. The output would stay 1 for a longer period of time. But why is this happening? How do we have a good PMOS and a bad NMOS, or a good NMOS and a bad PMOS? How do we get that? And why do we get that?
It might be due to the manufacturing process.
Yes, it is due to manufacturing process. Ranjit?
So
Yes, Raghav?
So like you are saying that if the curve is moving to the right or left, it means the beta ratio is basically changing, sort of. So, but beta ratio is related to the physical characteristics. Okay. So I mean, so basically, we are saying that whatever it is happening, it is due to the physical. At that, when the physical device is getting manufactured, at that time something is happening, which is leading to this kind of observed behavior.
You can say electrical beta ratio is changing. Would that be okay?
So electrical beta ratio, what the term would be?
Yeah, electrical beta ratio can be considered as the on current of the NMOS upon on current of the PMOS.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Because if you have to equate them, that is how you will come to the physical W/L beta ratio, is it not?
Yes, sir.
है ना?
But right now
So
I'm only
you get
considering what.
you arrive at any beta ratio so that you get some ratio between the on current of the PMOS and the NMOS, is it not?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Okay, sir.
है ना? That is the basis. So we are talking about that basis. That if the PMOS current is more and the NMOS current is lesser, then it's almost like saying that the beta ratio of this device is such that PMOS appears to be larger and NMOS appears to be smaller.
Okay. Okay.
Sir, it might be like the doping of PMOS is much better than doping of NMOS. I mean,
So, okay, so you're saying that doping could be one reason why this behavior can happen. Okay, great. What else?
So ultimately, sir, we can say all these factors are leading to change in resistance of the devices.
All which factors? Why factors? So
So
I'm trying to find out.
beta, okay, sir, yeah, beta.
Resistance is.
So beta ratio is a consequence of something.
Sir, can we
Is it not?
say variation?
It is, sir,
in VT?
mobility,
Yeah.
width,
Why would
length.
mobility change? Why would mobility change?
No, sir, mobility. I am saying that beta is consist of these parameters, but
No,
mobility
no.
will be same.
So wait. So you are confusing between beta inside the model definition and beta ratio that we talk of as an inverter. They are two very different things. Be careful.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So the beta as in model definition is something different from the beta ratio that we were just talking about.
Sir, can this be due to variation in VT?
Yes, we just said no. It could be due to VT with doping variations. Doping variations will lead to VT variations.
Yeah.
In the chat window, someone is saying TOX variations. Okay, yes, TOX variations will also lead to something like VT variations.
So does
Width
it have
variations, yes,
to,
definitely.
does it have to
They are
do,
a direct impact on beta ratio. Faisal,
so does it have to do something with the temperature?
temperature means?
Means if the temperature varies, then the like mobility of charge can vary. The
Yes,
speed of
that will
charge can
anyways.
vary.
Yeah, see, in this situation, when we are plotting them on the same graph, we are assuming over here that the voltage of operation and temperature remain same.
Okay.
But
okay.
even then, something has happened.
Yes. Okay.
We are looking at why all those things could happen. So yes, for example, if there is a variation in TOX, that could be because of different duration for which the oxide was grown. If there is a variation in doping, it could be because of a slightly different duration for which phosphine was run over the wafer, for example. So that phosphorus doping would be different. So it could be because of all these little variations that can happen in the manufacturing process. So have we done this exercise in the class already where I asked you to write something 10 times on a piece of paper? Have we done that exercise?
Yes, sir.
So you know that when in a manufacturing process, there can anyways be some variations that can happen. However well controlled the process would be, there would still be some variations. And they lead to what we call as device variations. And these device variations are then modeled into what is called as process lots. These variations are due to, as we just said, VT, oxide thickness of NMOS and PMOS, effective length, effective width, and so on. So what we say is that we had targeted to make a particular device. We call that typical. This was the device that we wanted to make. Okay, the center one. But then what happened when I was, let us say, doping for the NMOS, then it happened in such a way that my device for the NMOS side would go towards fast. So this dot started to move towards right. So NMOS doping was such that the device would go to fast. Then when I was doing doping for the PMOS, then again, it was such that the device would go towards fast, let us say. So it would go up. So I reached this particular place, which is called as FF. which is fast NMOS, fast PMOS. However, if while doping for the PMOS, the doping went towards slow side for the PMOS, I would go here. And I would arrive at a lot which is called as fast NMOS, slow PMOS, FS. Also written as SNSP for more clarity. Okay, NMOS is fast, PMOS is slow. But typically, if you say FS, then people assume that NMOS is being talked about first. Okay, but you can always write it in FNSP format so that it is more clear to anyone there. Okay, so now let us say that not just, so we said that the doping for NMOS was towards fast, doping for PMOS was also towards fast, so I reached here. Now we say that the etching of the poly, when we were defining the gates, that also happened for a few milliseconds more. So what happened? Both NMOS and PMOS became a little faster. Then we say that the oxide thickness was also grown for a slightly lesser time. So again, both NMOS and PMOS became faster, and we essentially moved from somewhere over here to this point where all the variations are then overlaid over one over another, and we arrived at the fast lot. So you would add variations, come here, then add stuff and come somewhere here. Okay. Are you getting the sense? There are some variations which are correlated and some variations which are independent. For example, NMOS and PMOS dopings happen in different steps. So they are independent. NMOS can be doped more and PMOS can be doped less. But some variations like length and P oxide thickness, they would be similar for both NMOS and PMOS. Are you with me on this? Any questions?
So if the poly is etched more, then it will lead to slower side, right? Or the faster side?
Why is the poly is etched more than the length is shorter? If the length is shorter, so in the IDS current equation, if you just go to that equation for once, how does the length appear in the equation? W by L.
So, but like you said, na, that diffusion areas would be fixed for us when the mask will be made. So if the poly is etched more, then we will not even get the gate itself. No, sorry, the device itself.
Even before we enter into this this business of how the drain what do you say, capacitance, etc., would come into picture, we had this lecture on manufacturing process.
Yes.
What was the sequence of manufacturing steps?
I mean, yes, sir. So first we deposit the poly, then we do diffusion area. So, but like even before we are going towards the poly, the mass that according to which the diffusion is happening, they have been already manufactured. So if the poly is etched more, the device itself won't be manufactured basically.
So let us review that once. How do you make diffusion region in your layouts?
So
This, na?
yes, sir.
And then you make poly.
Yeah, yes, sir.
So diffusion mask is this. Is it not?
Yes, sir.
So now if the poly length has reduced, what happens? The drain will form. It will still form along the gate.
Yeah.
So this process is called as self-aligned gate. And it's a very powerful process because then whatever variations happen to the length, the poly may shift this side, that side, whatever happens, my transistor action will not be impacted. My source and drain will be aligned to the gate at all times. Do you see that? Hello?
Sir, can you please repeat this, sir? I do not understand.
So you tell me, what is the process of manufacturing? What are the steps how we manufacture a transistor?
So first we'll have the substrate, then we will introduce the N-well. After that, we will deposit the field oxide along with the gate oxide, and then we do the etching. Post that, we do our implantation, and after that, after the implantation, then yeah, we make the contact windows, and then post that we will deposit the metal.
What about the gate? When will the gate come?
Oh, sorry, sir. After the depositing the gate oxide, we deposit the polysilicon.
Okay. So when we deposit the polysilicon, then we etch the polysilicon after that.
We'll etch the polysilicon, yes.
So that is when the gate is formed.
Yes.
And now, after you've etched the polysilicon and you've etched the gate oxide in regions where there was no polysilicon, you will now do the implant so that source and drain regions are formed.
Yes.
So at all times, gate will always be in touch with source and drain.
Yes, sir.
Now, if the sequence of designing source and drain was such that I would make source and drain first and then deposit poly, something like this can happen. Do you see?
Yes, sir.
In this, the transistor action will not happen. Or
yes.
Something like this can also happen.
Yes.
The poly mass just got shifted by a few nanometers. Again, transistor action would not happen.
Yes, sir.
But in the process that we are using, the process is we will deposit the poly first.
Yes.
And then we will deposit the implants for source and drain.
Yes.
So transistor action will always happen.
Okay.
And this is what is called as self-aligned gate.
Okay. Understood, sir. Thank you.
Okay. You will have to give me a minute. My PPT kind of crashed. So any other questions around this? Is this part clear about the self-aligned poly and stuff?
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
So, sir, the self-aligned gate is a property of the actual process itself. It's not
of the manufacturing process. Yes.
Okay. So, like once we realize that our poly itself has shifted here and there, we can just realign the entire deposition process.
It will automatically get realigned.
Okay. Okay.
The way we defined the process, do you see it will automatically get redefined?
No, yes, sir. Okay.
Are you able to see this? So what are we talking about? We are saying that I will deposit the gate first. Now let us say the original position of gate was this, but I deposited gate a little to the left. After I have deposited the gate, I will do the implant for source and drain. So what happens now? The implant for source and drain happens like this. I still have source and drain there, which are connected. So the transistor action will still happen in this region, even if my poly got misaligned.
Okay, sir. I got it. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So now tell me one thing. If L effective is reduced, that is poly is etched a little more, what happens? Will I get a fast device or a slow device?
Fast device.
Huh?
It will be fast.
It will be fast device.
It will be fast. Why? Because we know that the model is KW by L into VGS minus VT the whole square, stuff like that. So L comes in the denominator. If the length is lesser, etching has happened a little more, then the current will be more. So I get a fast device. So how should my VT change? How should my VT change to get a fast device? Should VT reduce or should VT increase?
It should reduce.
It should reduce. Why? Because of the VGS minus VT term.
Yes. Yes.
If VT reduces, VGS minus VT term increases and therefore current increases. Great. What about TOX?
TOX also should reduce nominally.
No, sir, it should,
not be an
yeah, it
indication.
should reduce. Just because you need to increase the COX. for the
Yes. If the TOX reduces, it increases the COX, which leads to more current.
But sir, all of these, like, if you decrease VT, then you're also like increasing the sub-threshold conduction, or if
Then
you
you're
are
also increasing
decreasing
the, sorry, what you were saying, you're also
the
increasing the,
sub-threshold conduction will increase, right?
yeah, that is
Increase.
happening, but my device is fast, na? On current is more,
Yeah.
hai na? So that is what you're trying to find out. How will the device become fast? So all these things will lead to a fast device. On the other side, larger length, high VT, thicker gate oxide would lead to a slow device. Huh? And while stuff like L effective and TOX is correlated for both NMOS and PMOS, dopant implant is independent, for example. So it can happen that you will get fast lot also, where just by chance both NMOS and PMOS moved towards fast direction. But you can also come to SS and FS lots where NMOS move to one side and PMOS move to the other. Is that part clear?
Sir, can you revisit the concept where the VT is dependent upon the doping? I mean, like
So-
how was VT changing? I mean,
Okay, so if the doping is more, let us say, what happens?
so we are talking of the diffusion doping, right?
No, not just that. We're talking of doping even under the gate.
The substrate doping also.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what happens if the doping under the gate changes? Because that is where the transistor action happens. Diffusion and
Yes,
source
sir.
are just sources of current.
Yes, sir.
है ना? So it's under the gate that the way you dope, that will change the transistor behavior. So if you increase the doping a bit, what happens? The depletion width reduces.
Yeah, under the diffusion and the substrate.
Under the gate, the depletion width would reduce.
Yes, sir.
If the depletion width reduces, then what happens?
Sir, but when I am taking the transistor action, I should not be talking about the depletion bit, right? Because
Why?
that is not that, because then I'm not considering that.
What is
depletion.
VT?
After the inversion, after the depletion, the inversion layer forms. That is VT.
Yes. After the depletion, maximum depletion width has happened, then the inversion layer sets in. So
Yes.
if I'm saying that the maximum depletion layer will now happen faster. So what will VT come to? VT will happen faster. VT will be low.
Okay. Yes.
Faisal?
So I have a doubt in this VT part. If the doping is more, so suppose we have a N well and the P plus doping on the source and drain. So if the doping is more in the substrate, then the electrons in that the region below the gate is more. Now we need more VGS to remove those electrons and get the holes from the P plus. So I think VT will be more in that case.
So essentially what we are saying is that when we change the doping, VT will get impacted.
Yes, that much I understand.
There could be multiple directions in which my system will move due to variations in doping. In fact, you will realize that in advanced technologies, there are retrograde implants, there are super halo implants, there are halo implants, and such complex doping that whatever picture we are talking about, Faisal, is largely hypothetical and just for ease of understanding.
Okay.
The actual process is fairly complex.
Okay.
With multiple features figuring in.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So what is most important to arrive at? So you can study all that in detail when we do SSD.
Yes,
What is
that's
most
fine.
important to arrive at is that doping for NMOS and PMOS is going to be different.
Yes.
It will be independent steps.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So VT shift of NMOS and PMOS will happen in different directions or can happen in different directions.
Yes, sir.
That's the point we need to take back home.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, because I agree, we will, I would have encouraged much more digressions, but earlier in the course. Now we are, we have to move fast towards our target of coming to circuits. So yes, you can study more reference material. Even in Veste and Harris, you will have more material about how VT shift happens with doping and all that. You will, if you take SSD course, you will read much more about how VT shifts happen and how it is impacted by doping.
Yes, sir. So actually, it was discussed in the SSD course. That's why I've asked it out.
Yeah. So so SSD must have also discussed halo and super halo implants.
No, not yet, sir.
Not yet. So you will see that in all the advanced technologies where these implants are in picture, it is not so obvious to say कि doping बढ़ा और कम हुआ तो क्या होगा. It is also about the depth at which doping has happened, the size of the halo, so many things.
Yes, sir. Okay. Understood your point, sir.
Okay. So what is important to understand is some variation, sources of variation are correlated, others are independent. And therefore you have ET lot, that is the target, and FS, slow NMOS, slow PMOS, FS, fast NMOS, fast PMOS, and also SF and fast NMOS, slow PMOS kind of lots.
Sir?
Yes, Meher?
Yeah, I didn't understand why would increasing the doping, decrease the maximum depletion width.
हम उसमें जा सकते हैं मेहर, but that will take us completely off this
Okay, so
class.
I was just asking off first.
Yeah, we can study that later, or we can discuss this in the office hours. Is that okay?
Right, yeah, okay.
So now, if we know that my circuit can happen or can be or my wafer can be manufactured in any of these lots, then isn't it evident that I should verify all these lots when I do my design?
So by lots, you're meaning the die, complete die.
Lot means a set of 25 wafers.
Okay.
All the 25 wafers that are in the lot, for example, would have one kind of doping, because the doping happens, the doping happens in one go for a set of 25 wafers. Substrate doping, at least. Now, when we talk about halo and super halo, then so this was how the word lot had arrived at. Okay, but in advanced technologies, when we talk about complex substrate doping engineering, then you would do that doping on a wafer by wafer basis. So that would then appear as a lot. Then the lot variations are now limited to one wafer only. Okay, but in older technologies, the lot meant a set of 25 wafers that would go into the doping machine simultaneously.
So just a trivia, if this lot we are considering of 25 wafers, so then this 25, all the wafers and all the dies will be corresponding to one process corner, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, it is not so simple. It can happen that, so let us look at it like this. When you doped them, they all went towards, let us say, FS, all of them. But then what happened? The substrate doping you had done, and then what happened? You started to deposit the gate, and the gate deposition was towards the fast. The etching of the gate happened a little more, so you moved a little here. Then something else happened. You could have moved a little here, for example. So there will be so many routes through which the lots could be manufactured anywhere in between these.
So this whole area is the person.
So this region is where your dies will be manufactured. These are just model representations. You will get only these models so that you verify only these corner points. So these are called VT corners or process corners. That doesn't mean a lot will be manufactured only in these 5 points. Lots should be manufactured everywhere. These are the corners of that distribution. Okay. ठीक है. So, अरे यार, यहाँ तक clear है? Any questions? Okay. So now coming to the next part, which is that are these the only reasons why delays or something would change? Or could delays change because of something else also?
Temperature.
Hmm?
Temperature.
Temperature, okay. Rajneesh,
The VDD used.
the voltage of operation, yes. Rajneesh, you have a question?
Sir, it was related to something earlier, sir. Sir, you said that a lot is a set of wafers. So, sir, I understood that there will be variations in the slots. So, in multiple wafers, sir, there will be variations within the wafer also, no, sir?
Yes, we'll come to that. We'll
Okay,
come
sir.
to that, not just within a wafer. You will see that there are variations within a die also. There are die to die variations also.
So, okay, sir. Okay, sir.
है ना?
Yes.
So all that will happen. Don't worry. We will discuss all that. It will just give me a minute. My PPT seems to be playing cranky today. So we are also talking about the next thing that we need to look at is VT variations. So what happens to VT the variations and delays due to VDD and temperature? Madhur, you had a question?
Yes, sir. So in Virtuoso, when we try to run simulation, we either do it for the process coordinates. So you said that our final device would be anywhere between in this region only. So it doesn't necessarily have to be at any of the corners, right? So how do you decide?
Yeah, corner is a corner. Corner is just one point. In reality, the device can be manufactured anywhere, no?
So how do we simulate such that we simulate the behavior of the manufactured device and not just the corners?
Do you really want to simulate intermediate points, Madhur? What would you achieve by that?
I said, doesn't this mean that our transistor wouldn't work as we simulated?
Sorry. थोड़ा सा loudly बोलो. It's not coming clear over here.
So this would mean that our transistor is not working exactly as we intended it to be. It's not as the simulation.
So it is not as bad, as slow as you had possibly designed it for. It could be faster, yes. Or it is not as fast as you had qualified the whole time for. It could be slower than that, yes.
Okay, sir.
But do you really want to check for those intermediate transistors also?
I mean, sir, if it matters, then we should check. If it doesn't,
You tell me. Would it matter?
Maybe, sir.
Okay.
It may matter.
No. Maybe. Let us logically arrive at a solution. Because if I say that I have to test every point that could exist on that space, you see there could be infinite points. है ना?
Yes, sir.
So that would mean that my verification effort would go like anything, would expand like anything. So my design time, my time to market will go for a toss. As a designer, we cannot simply say maybe. Won't work.
Okay, sir. So we know beforehand that if we are using this manufacturing process, that it will lie near some of those corners, and
we say it will be within this rhombus.
Okay.
And then we verify the corners. So we were now looking at the environmental variations, which is VDD and temperature will also have an impact. So what happens when VDD rises?
The resistance decreases and the delay also decreases.
The delay decreases. So I move towards fast.
Yes.
Temperature, what temperatures will I be faster?
Initially, the mobility will increase, then the mobility will decrease after a certain temperature.
Yeah. So if you're operating at high enough voltages, lower temperatures are faster. If you're operating at low voltages, then you will see that higher temperatures are faster. So at low voltages, at high voltages, lower temperature meant faster operation. And at again high voltages only, we are in that high voltage range over here. Then higher temperature meant slower operation because mobility reduced. However, if on the other hand you are operating at, let us say, 0.8, 0.72, and 0.64, then what happens? At 0.8, you will have faster operation at 125 and slower operation at -40 because temperature inversion has happened. Is that okay?
Can you please explain this point again?
So do you know the concept of temperature inversion?
No, sir.
Do you know the dependence of mobility on temperature?
Yes, sir.
So what happens to mobility as temperature increases?
Mu proportional to T to the power -3/2. Is it that?
Yeah.
So the
And
initially will, yeah. Okay.
is there anything else in terms of temperature that mobility is dependent on?
I mean, there are two kinds of scattering we consider,
Yes.
and it
Yes.
increases for 3/2. Then
Duality is scattering and beta is scattering.
it's both plus
Yes.
and minus.
Yes. So as temperature increases, the scattering also increases. So mobility actually, overall current actually degrades.
Yes.
Okay. This is at high voltages. However, when you are operating at low voltages, the total number of carriers that you have in the conduction band, they are not much. So when you increase the temperature, that carrier boost is much more than the scattering that would have happened because of lattice vibration and anything like that. Okay. And therefore, at low voltages, higher temperatures lead to better current.
Yes.
Sir, can you just repeat that? Like how higher voltages can lead to better current, even though, I mean, your mobility is decreasing. So
Higher voltage is always better current, is it not?
the higher voltage is better current, but higher temperature will reduce.
So what happens at low voltages, the voltage is so low that the gate overdrive, let us say, is not sufficient. Even if the gate overdrive is sufficient, we say that the number of carriers that you have in the conduction band to be able to conduct the current, that is not much. There are carriers, inversion is already set in, we know that. But even then, there is something missing. As you increase the temperature, more carriers come into picture.
Right.
Carriers have more energy now, so
Yeah.
they move faster.
Also, sir, I mean, temperatures also actually decreases the threshold voltage. That is might also be a factor.
Yeah, so see, threshold voltage reduction is also a consequence of this effect that आपका number of carriers बढ़ जाएंगे and all that.
Yes.
Looking at the different definitions of threshold voltage, see, all these are different ways of pointing at the same phenomena.
Right.
Current increase hona, VT reduce hona, all they are one could say that because current has increased, therefore VT has reduced. Because VT ki definition is 1 microampere of current for a 1 micron width device.
Okay. Right.
है ना? So Yeah, Raj. Is this part clear? Hello? Temperature and impact of temperature and voltage on circuit performance. Is that part clear? Rajneesh, you have a question?
Sir, slide is not visible.
Sir, when this in this you have written that the VDD is higher and the temperature is low. So though our device is becoming faster, sir, but the threshold leakage will increase, no, sir?
Yeah,
no,
the
no.
threshold leakage on fast devices is known to be higher.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We have to compromise with.
Yeah, that is known to be higher.
Okay.
So now tell me, if you have to verify, then what will be the PVTs at which you will design and verify your, PVT means process temperature and voltage, for which you will design and verify your circuits. Hello?
Slow, sir.
Slow. Slow. What about voltage?
Slow with low voltage.
Temperature?
High
Temperature. So, have you checked your assignment 3? They've asked you to characterize at multiple PVTs.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So now can you identify and relate why so many PVTs are being asked for?
Yes, sir.
They're all about these various corners. And also what you will see is that for some parameters, like for timings, delays, putting everything to slow leads to worst case result. But for some other parameters, putting everything to fast would lead to worst case results. And in terms of leakage, it's a mix of slow and fast, because you want high temperature to see worst case leakage. Are you able to see this?
So the worst case in case of in case of fast will be for whole time like violations.
Yes, contamination delays will be worst in the fast, low temperature and everything.
Okay, sir.
Propagation delays will be worst in slow, low voltage and high temperature. Subthreshold leakage, as we rightly pointed out, is higher when you have fast NMOS, fast PMOS, when VDD is also high. But for high leakage, we need to have the higher temperature. So the temperature is related to the slow temperature, 125 degrees Celsius. That is where you need mix of different PVTs to overall characterize your designs. That is why this long list of PVT is there. So is that all? Is that all that we need to worry about, or is there something else?
So can you explain the slide again?
Which slide?
So the slide important for us.
This one?
No, sir. I meant like the one you were currently on, like last time. No, sir. After that. Yes. So when I asked the doubt, we were on important quarters, like for purpose cycle or cycle time, you're using slow. And this one. Can you just explain this again? I mean, how all these corners are suited for these type of purposes?
Okay, so we just saw na delay are worst when NMOS is slow, PMOS is slow, VDD is low, and temperature is high.
Okay, so that's
It's just tabulating it in one form. That's it.
Okay. Right, and obviously it will consume more power when it's in the fast curve.
Yeah, power would also be higher, also because of leakage being higher when your voltage of operation is higher, it is CV square F. So the capacitance is higher when the devices are fast. V is higher. VDD means we want to increase CV square F, so VDD has to be higher. And we know frequency is highest when the temperature is low. So CV square F is highest when, or power is highest when everything is towards the fast side. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So someone of you already pointed out, okay, we can have all these lots. So in reality, what you get is not rhombus. What you get is actually an ellipse. And on that ellipse, you define what is called as 1 sigma ellipse, 2 sigma ellipse, and 3 sigma ellipse. You say everything within this is considered as typical, and this part is slow, let us say. Okay. So all models, SS, FF, all that rhombus that we looked at, it is a fitting exercise. You have to arrive at a rhombus over here, which would be safe for designing purposes. There may still be some lots which will be out of this rhombus, and you agree that on those lots, you accept some extra yield loss. Okay. In addition to that, see, whichever lot I have designed at, suppose a lot is placed here, you will see that there will be variations on that particular wafer itself. These are called device variations. So until now, we were looking at lot variations. Now these are called device variations. And to validate a design with device variations, you go to the SS corner or FF corner or whatever corner you're talking about, and you run Monte Carlo there. What is Monte Carlo?
Sir, if there are like more number of inputs, I will be using each input one after the other to get the output.
Yeah, Monte Carlo analysis is an analysis in which you will vary different parameters which are known to exhibit variations. So what are the parameters over here that we know will exhibit variations? Intrinsic parameter over here that will exhibit variations. Doping, L effective, W effective, stuff like that. So you vary all those parameters for different devices and randomly place those variations on different devices. Then when you simulate, what you will get is this red shaded circle around that lot point. It is the sample of transistors that could be manufactured on that particular lot.
Sir, can you explain this again? Actually, I was not able to get it. We are for a particular lot, what we are doing exactly here.
So, we were just talking that if there is a wafer, even on that wafer, there could be variations that could happen in a device which is manufactured towards the top of the wafer, and then a device which is manufactured towards the right side of the wafer.
Yes, sir.
So it means that for even a lot, there will be other device variations which will come into picture.
Yes, sir.
So how do you validate those? So one part of validation, we said, okay, we will test or characterize and design our stuff at circuits at SS 1.1, 125. Well, SS, low voltage, high temperature, and all that. We just agreed that we will do that. But for final circuit verification, you also need to take into account device variations. And that is what you will do by the means of running Monte Carlo simulations. This is called as Monte Carlo analysis also, in which different variations are applied to different transistors, so that the example that we just saw, that one PMOS is fast and the NMOS is slow, those situations can appear even in a fast lot or even in a slow lot. where they were expected to both move in the same direction.
So
Okay.
sir, like when at the starting I was taking the PBT variations in the law for a lot, basically I said that okay, my NMOS will be slow, and this VDD and temperature kind of way. So by that I had considered the lot variations of the
Yes.
lot thing, and now even I'm going once I pick up a certain corner, rhombus corner, then I'm going into that particular corner
Yes.
and doing the same exercise of PMOS, low PMOS, NMOS, then and VDD temperature.
Yes. Again injecting variations in there
Okay.
and seeing how the devices in this particular lot can lead to a change in my circuit functionality.
Okay. So, sir, like when, for example, in the Virtuoso itself, when we are doing the simulations with the ADEL window, so when we are selecting the sources, that at that time when we are selecting the slow, and the temperature, that are basically the lot basically
Lot
parameters.
variations. Yes, they are lot variations. Okay, Rajneesh.
Sir, so in conclusion, we can say that within this slot, there are this is the wafer, and this wafer has this four corner devices, that fast, slow, and this four. And there are, sir, this sir, in this lot variation, sir, there is four possibility of devices, no? Sir.
In the lot variation?
So this graph here is the lot variations. So here basically there is four possibility of
No,
devices.
there are infinite possibilities of devices. That is why we've made this ellipse there.
So in this there is no fast, slow.
There is the corner points, we call them fast, and slow.
Okay, sir.
The corner points of this ellipse, we call them as fast, and slow. But there will only probably be a few lots in those corners. Majority of lots will be enclosed in the rhombus there.
Okay.
Hmm?
Okay.
Okay.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
So for this left graph, so that is the lot variation.
Yeah, left and right both are lot variations only.
But then
on the right one, I've just made this red circle, which is device variations.
So what is the y-axis in both of them?
For the left graph, the y-axis are threshold voltages, and for the right graph, the x and y-axis are currents, ID SAT.
Okay, so but we could run this Monte Carlo simulation on the left graph as well.
Yeah. You just choose a lot and you run Monte Carlo variations, and you will get a distribution of all these points.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Yes, Deepank.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, my question is for TT, sir, does the foundry provide us a real T, because we cannot be very sure that which is the most middle point always. So every time you manufacture, the middle point also might vary. So according to me, the TT should be calculated theoretically, and with reference to that, we should decide FF and SF, or the foundry only provides every time the TT parameters.
The foundry will give you the lots always. Even the SS and FF lots, the foundry will give you. You don't decide as a designer.
No, sir. My question was like TT should be an averaged out value of all the corners, right? Because
every foundry may have a different way to arrive at TT, Deepank. Some foundry may say that, okay, this TT will be my target. Okay. I'm suppose today you want to design in 3 nanometers. The technology is not even there, or even if it is there, it is in a prototype stage. You do not even know what kind of variations will finally happen, not happen. So where you will finally place your TT, you still not figured out the final devices or the final materials that you will use in your gate dielectric and stuff like that.
Right.
Okay, you have a prototype technology running. So in such cases, the models will be called paper models, largely paper models, where we're talking about specifications. But as the technology matures, for example, if today you would want to talk about 18 nanometer or a 22 nanometer or 28 nanometer, technology is very mature. So now TT is actually given by the process that okay, there are majority of wafers which are being manufactured in this place. So this is my TT.
Correct. Correct. So my question is that yeah, we were doing the simulations in Eldo, so we had the files with us, but and there were TT also in that. So but in the real life, that TT might change over the time.
Yeah, that so
Okay.
in real life, yeah, in the evolution of a technology, it will definitely change.
Okay. Sure. That okay. Got it.
But once the technology is frozen, once the process is well in control, and the foundry has defined that this is my TT, then that TT then remains constant. Then if you make a lot and it is towards fast, you say it is not TT. That's it.
Sure.
But as the technology evolves, TT would change. Yes.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So is the question clear to others also? Is the answer clear to others also?
So, in both the graphs, after we have the foundry has provided us with the basically the lot corners, then this red basically curve is that we are doing by ourselves for the Monte Carlo for the device kind of analysis on that particular lot, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And what he was also asking was, will TT always be constant? Is TT a hypothetical value or driven from the process? So what I responded was that when the technology is not very mature, TT would be paper models. In fact, all the corners will also be paper models. But as the technology matures, TT and all the other corners will be silicon-driven models. And the positions would change over time. Yes, Devajit.
Sir, just to confirm one thing, in both the graphs, sir, the FF and SS would be reversed, right?
Yes. On the left graph, FF would be towards the bottom corner, towards the origin side.
Yes, sir. And
on the right graph, it will be the SS will be towards the origin side.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Good observation, Devjit.
So because saturation current is more on the right side.
Exactly. So I can confuse you in the mid sem or end sems and tell you कि अच्छा बताओ कहाँ पे FFTT है. So you have to carefully look at the axis and then decide.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So in addition to these TT, SS, FF things, we also have what is called as FFF and SSF lots or points. They are essentially the result of when I run Monte Carlo on FF and SS. I see that the worst case NMOS and PMOS combo can happen over here. So when you are, verifying small circuits, you may want to verify them over these points also. You do not characterize them because in characterization part, usually a small circuit is not an end in itself. You would have many circuits cascaded one after the another, and the overall delays would never be at FFF or SSF. But when you're just verifying your circuits, you may want to verify them at these functional points also. Not all foundries provide it, but quite a few foundries do provide these functional models. Okay, so they may call this as FFG, SSG, SFG and FSG also. But yeah, they may also provide these functional models in addition to that. Okay. Now, yes.
Sir, how are we supposed to do this Monte Carlo simulation in the simulator, sir? In Cadence.
Yeah, so you can look into the user manual. You just have a command called .mc.
Okay, sir.
Okay, you just use the command .mc. You tell which parameters you want to vary, and you tell how many number of simulations you want to do. So it will run the Monte Carlo simulations for you.
Okay, sir.
It is available in the user manual. Okay. So now, see, we know that a device may be manufactured, let us say, fast. But on fast, we also know that the leakage is very high and the delays are much lesser. So you signed off, you designed something to operate at 2 gigahertz. Now a die is manufactured or a lot is manufactured which is operating at 3 gigahertz. Now overall ecosystem, आपको पता है 3 gigahertz से you cannot really operate the system at 3 gigahertz because there could be resonance issues, there could be inductive effects which would come into picture and so on. So you anyway want to operate the particular die at 2 gigahertz. But the devices are fast, so you say, and my leakage is very high. You say, oh, can I do something to arrive at 2 gigahertz instead of 3 gigahertz? But I reduce the leakage. So what would you do? You can do multiple things. You can, for example, apply body bias. What happens when you apply reverse body bias? Devices start to move towards slow. Then VT starts to increase basically. Another thing that you can do is you can reduce the voltage of operation. You can say, see, I wanted to operate at 2 gigahertz at 1.2 volts. Now at 1.2 volts, I'm already getting 3 gigahertz. Why not operate at 1.15 or 1.12 volts? And I will come to 2 gigahertz. And now because I'm operating at a lower voltage, I will also consume lesser power. So these two techniques, so this is where you are changing the body bias, is what called adaptive body bias. And the other one where I said that you could lower the VDD, or if you're on the slow lot, you want to improve the performance, you could increase the VDD a bit because you know that at higher VDD performances are higher. So that is called adaptive voltage scaling. Okay, so these again are areas of active research. There is lots of work happening. There are even production. These technologies are even production where dies are trimmed to operate at lower voltage or higher voltage depending on where they were manufactured at. So at the time of test, you see what is the operational frequency and you trim them. What is the leakage and you trim them appropriately. Okay.
So,
Raghav?
so the body bias was applied for the fast and the voltage for the slow. So kind of.
I could apply voltage for fast also. I could lower the voltage and reduce the overall power consumption.
Okay, right. Both these techniques are available for the corners.
Yeah.
So by using these techniques, I'm trying to basically move the devices towards a typical corner.
Yes. I'm trying to bring the device back into my specification for, say, let us say leakage or power consumption or timing or whatever.
Okay.
Okay.
But
so process compensation, you will see, is used in a large number of products today already. It's not a new concept that we're talking about any longer. Okay. Something else also, Raghav?
I mean, so this body bias thing was considering this body bias can basically further create more complications, won't it? Like, I mean,
like,
I'm not able to exactly pinpoint, but I think that like something like it can lead to like further like because earlier when we were considering like when we were doing the substrate taping and substrate tapping and we're connecting the source with the body, we are sort of those latch up effects and many other things can pop up.
Yes. So very, very good, Raghav. I'm so happy that you're able to anticipate the problems that can come with body bias. So in terms of forward body bias, you have to realize that you cannot really forward body bias your PN junctions beyond anything beyond 0.2 or 0.3 volts, because otherwise the leakage currents would kind of run off. Similarly, on the side of reverse body bias, there would be constraints on how much reverse body bias you can put. again, because otherwise band-to-band tunneling will kind of run off. There will be lots of current that would flow from the source to the substrate or drain to the substrate. So you cannot really do a lot of body bias. So very good and very interesting observation. However, in advanced technologies like FD-SOI, fully depleted SOI, so there is no junction in the source and drain region. There is simply a buried oxide. So since there is no junction, so there is no concept of junction leakage per se, and junction leakage cannot increase. So you can apply whatever amount of forward body bias or reverse body bias that you want to.
So you are talking about here the SOI technology.
Yes.
Okay.
The fully depleted SOI, not even partially. If you were on partially depleted SOI, then again you will face trouble because junction would be there. Only in fully depleted SOI, you can actually go to very large range of body bias voltages.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Okay. So that much for the process variations today. Let's come to course projects. I know all of you have too many questions about the course projects. So let me just give you a quick overview first. So the projects are to be done in teams of 3 to 4 people. Best is if you are 3 people. If you are 4 people, we will redefine the scope of the project so that it is appropriate for 4 people. Different kinds of projects are already there. You've already seen, stuff like design and characterize a circuit like a sense amplifier, a macro like an adder or a multiplier, row decoders you can design where we can use the logical effort, things that we've already learned. We could also design flip-flops, different design styles, benchmark amongst them. Then lots of projects that we have proposed are based on AOIs, OAIs, and multiplexers and demultiplexers, etc. So you will be expected to make the layouts and do detailed circuit analysis. As I mentioned, if it's 4 people, then we may ask you that, okay, compare the AOI implementation with a regular 2 or 3 states. So AOI stands for AND or invert. So 3 operations we have merged into 1 gate. So it has some benefits, it has some disadvantages. We would want you to, if you are 4 people, we would not just want you to design the AOI or the OAI or the multiplexer and demultiplexer. We would also want you to compare it with the non-complex gate implementations. Simple AND, simple OR, simple invert, and stuff like that. Okay. So ideally, project teams of 3 members, but 4 members is also fine. We just change the scope of the project for 4 members. And a wide range of projects are available. You can choose according to your liking, according to your group strengths. And the window for registering for the projects will open in the evening today. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
So in my experience, the moment the thing opens, it kind of also gets closed, in a sense that people usually are waiting to fill in their name in front of their project name. And so you should be mentally prepared to design, to work on 2 or 3, 4 projects. Taki, the first one that you want to write your name into, if that's got filled, second one, third one, or fourth one would actually fit in. But anyways, the intent is that each one of you should attend all the presentations finally, because in every presentation, you will get to learn quite a bit about even your circuit when you look at it. Okay. There will be 2 stages of evaluations. There will be one stage where we would want you to just, give a quick overview of how you would validate your circuit, how you would design your circuit, what is the ideology that you would want to use. And the final presentation would be closer to the end-sem exams, before the end-sem exams, in fact, and probably a week before the end-sem exams. And in that final presentation, you will have to demonstrate the RC LV screen layout, post layout simulations, and everything. Okay. So questions. I know there are many.
Sir, in the non-complex gate implementation that you told, sir, the comparison would be post layout or pre layout?
Post layout.
Okay.
So when you do the post layout comparison there, you will realize that how to define the pins, how the pins have to be connected across adjacent cells, and so on. So that is where you will actually get the real feel of a standard cell. So all this has to be designed, finally laid out in the 12-track configuration. Okay. So all area, everything you have to define in terms of 12 tracks.
So regarding this, actually there were many under the complex gates, and then there was a sense amplifier. So sir, like, can you give an idea about this? Actually, this is something very new to.
So sense amplifiers are circuits which are used inside memories to amplify a small differential on bit lines. So memories have a lot of storage elements stacked alongside each other, in rows and columns. The information from any memory cell is brought out to the user through a circuit which is called as an IO, input output for simple. In that IO region, now, there are wires connecting all the different cells vertically. There are wires connecting all the cells horizontally. So the wires which bring out the information from inside the storage element are long. They have a huge capacitance. So if you really want to switch them in a digital format, that is, go to actually less than VDD by 2 and then rise to above VDD by 2 and stuff like that, then the delays can be very high because the capacitance is very large. So what is done is that these capacitances, you say, okay, I will discharge these capacitances only by, say, 100 millivolts. And then I will sense this discharge and amplify the discharge to give an output which is full VDD swing. So the large capacitance toggles only a little. What do we say? We save power. And if I have to toggle it only a little, then I also save time, because a little toggling I will be able to do faster. So I save both power and timing and delay. But I put in a sense amplifier which would amplify this small discharge into a full swing change. They are typically latch based, but yeah, so all the 3 examples that have been given to you are latch based sense amplifiers. Okay, so a latching operation happens and it kind of amplifies a small differential very quickly. That's the way a sense amplifier operates. If you want to take up that project, you will have to probably read a little more from Veste, Rabi, and you may have, if you have any doubts, I and other TAs will be more than happy to help you. All the TAs that we have in this course, they've done the memory design course also. So they know these sense amplifiers in and out.
So sir, is there like an analog component in sense amplifier as well?
Yes, sense amplifiers are analog circuits. In fact, that is the reason why memories are called as mixed signal. They were the first mixed signal circuits to be made. ADC DACs came later. Memories were designed long back, and you use sense amplifiers even then. So sense amplifiers have an analog feel to it. Yes.
So sir, like their layout and designing will be different as compared to the other, like the complex gate.
Yes. So when we're talking about designing either row decoder or macros like adders, multipliers, and sense amplifiers, then you do not follow the standard cell template, because these are macros. They are not going to be tiled.
Okay.
They're not going to be tiled in a standard manner. कि कहीं पे भी किसी को भी tile कर दो. For example, in a memory, you know where the sense amplifier will come. You cannot put a sense amplifier right next to a memory cell. But you know that, okay, for every 4 memory cells, there is 1 sense amplifier. So you have some constraints on the width around that. So the rules or the constraints are very different, Raghav. But yeah, they are not the same as the ones that we have for standard cells.
Okay.
Adders and multipliers, when you lay them out, you can actually use the standard cells to lay them out.
Okay,
Over
yeah.
here,
So
it's more about designing the stuff. Yes.
so the track kind of concept won't come into that, right?
So you will use the existing library that we have, and you will connect the cells there. So you will do something like connecting a NAND gate with a NOR gate at the top level, connecting the output pins of one gate to the input pins of another gate. All that work you will have to do. Again in Cadence Virtuoso.
Okay, okay. And so like in all the projects definition, there was actually you had written that comparative results can lead to publication. Can you elaborate a bit upon that? What you were suggesting by that?
Yeah. So see, if now with my courses, many students actually go ahead and publish their work in one place or another. Now, how does that happen? That happens because first the projects are with a little twist, which are not evident and not obvious to other people in the academia. So what we are doing here is actually very different. So if you talk to your colleagues from any other college, whether they are MTech colleagues or BTech colleagues, you just check any other college and you will see that they don't get to learn even half of what we are discussing over here. You know, they get to learn only what is given in the books. What all we discuss here, now is not in the books anywhere. So this is hands-on knowledge, and this is therefore valuable. And students get to publish their work after we complete our courses. However, one key rule of publication is that a publication should involve some benchmarking, some comparative results. Because otherwise, simply talking about a sense amplifier out of the blue doesn't make sense. There are thousands of papers existing on sense amplifiers. Why would I read about you, or why would I read about your sense amplifier and not those 1000 that already exist? So you have to compare your sense amplifier with them and say, see, my results are better. Therefore, you better read my paper. Or, for example, you could design an AOI in a dynamic logic style and also a static gate logic style. And then you compare that, okay, we've done this and we realize that dynamic is better in terms of this aspect and static is better in terms of those aspects. So that kind of a comparative analysis is something that is interesting for students to or other people in the academia to take back home, to interest them to read your work. Okay. So that is what I meant by saying that if you do a comparative analysis, you will probably be able to publish your work in some conference or a journal.
Okay, so like for the same complex, for example, circuit, if you are doing multiple implementations and doing the comparative study kind of that, so that.
Yeah. So for example, one team would be implementing the same circuit on AOI, on PTL. Another team would be doing it on CMOS. Another team would be doing it on dynamic logic. So there you already have 3 styles. Now imagine one of those teams is also a 4-member team. So you also have to design the separate gates and then check with that.
Yeah.
So you have multiple implementation and then you compare those implementations. So
okay.
While on the paper author list, you will be 8 or 9 people there, 10 people there. But even then the work would be interesting enough for someone to read. And therefore papers do get published.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And so in the complex itself, there was also one thing written like the double height kind of it was like mentioned double height.
Yeah, double height we will skip. We will not use double height. There was a proposal to use double height, but we will not use double height. We will probably compare with a standard implementation instead. Okay. Okay, guys. I think we are good to go then.
Could you explain on the flip-flops design and benchmark? What is
flip-flops? Again, you have different kinds of flip-flops, C2MOS flip-flops, regular transmission gate flip-flops, tri-state based flip-flops. There are different kinds of flip-flops that are there. You could implement any 2 of them, or 2 teams that are implementing could be doing a comparative analysis among them and trying to publish a paper, stuff like that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So all the best, guys. If you have more questions, I think you have office hours from Swapnil at around 4 p.m. today. You can also check with him. He can also help you with more details. And all the best.
Sir,
Excuse me, sir.
hello.
Yes, Naman.
Sir, actually, our group have a specific doubt, so can we ask in person?
You can ask in the class. Others may have a similar doubt. Please tell me.
Just confirmation, like till I'm doing capstone in the flip flop. Like my work is in flip flop. So can I take like flip flop project? Like basically, our team is likely to do some work in flip flop. So that's why.
See, you have to decide what you want to learn.
Like,
how can I stop you? If you want to learn flip
like,
flops, take flip flops. Do flip flops.
and sir, there is a like register based flip flop. So what mean by register based flip flop? Like there is there is lots of architectures even only for D flip flop itself. So I didn't get well.
A register flip flop would mean that a flip flop which has more than 1 bit storage element in there. You store more than 1 bit. So 4 bits, 4-bit flip flop, something like that.
So I can choose any architecture and just replicate that.
Yeah. So it's not simply replication. You have to define the clock, and so you will see once you enter into the project, you will see it's not just replication. Had it been replication, why would you put it as a different project?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, guys. All the best. See you. I'm stopping the recording
Thanks.
there.